What is up, everybody? Welcome to NFTs in the Arena. We are exactly 1 week from the Ethereum Merge. I think our last episode, John and I were actually recording a few hours before the merge actually occurred. And that's what we wanted to dive into today, essentially. And the big thing is that we actually just wanted to wait a week as opposed to doing the recording the day after to truly see how the dust has settled. And much of what we actually discussed on the previous episode has actually come to fruition. And what I mean by that is that the Ethereum blockchain held itself, and much like all the engineers who were sure of themselves, they're actually what they would deem as a success. And I suppose you would deem it as a success because the network is still intact, no one lost their money, and we'll actually get into a funny story about that. It's a funny learning, I suppose, because of the irony of things we've spoken about before later on in the episode. But to get started off, Jono, how you doing, man? How do you feel that the merge has gone based on the conversations you've had with people, based on what you've seen?
What's up, Mikey? What's up, peeps? Hope everyone's doing well. Well, look, I think from what I've heard and from what I've seen, look, it was a very busy week for me nonetheless. I did go through some hiccups, some ebbs and flows. So I haven't been very congruent in the space, but I did hear good things. Things were successful. Everything's running smoothly. So yeah, I think it's a thumbs up for me. I'm super excited. I'm actually going to dabble with staking Ethereum as soon as I get the chance.
Yeah, and why would you want to stake it now? Like what would the benefit be? Just so the audience knows.
Well, look, I think it's just about accruing interest over time. You know, like making use of the crypto for the long term. For me, it's a bit of both. I think there's investment where you hold it for a substantial amount of time, and there's also the opportunity to use it on the protocol. So yeah, like I think I'm gonna dabble with both. I don't know what the APYs are for the Ethereum stakes currently because I haven't dug into that space as yet. But when I do, I'll definitely notify everybody at the next session.
Yeah, just notify. Just hit him up on Instagram. So let's get into this, Donna. So I think the big question is, what now? What does this mean? Like, what is the next step here? And I think the first thing that I wanted to just go through is that I think Ethereum pulled off what some would say like a stunning technical upgrade that saw this popular blockchain that adopted the proof of stake model for processing transactions, which is obviously very good, and that was the intention. And what the goal of this was to do, and the next steps that this would create is essentially upgrading what is known as the merge, right? And it's going to slash carbon emissions, which is obviously a big thing. And I think that they said it's going to slash it by this is obviously what you read up on is 99%. And obviously that's quite impressive, because I also believe that much like we experienced in climate change around the world, we had now experienced this hurricane in Florida, Hurricane Ian, I think it's called. Obviously,
yeah, I've been hearing about that.
Everything you see nowadays is down to climate change, and of course, it's incredibly important. But I do feel like in anything, you have to have both sides to the story. And I also believe, like in many other cases, the media can obviously manipulate society into believing certain things. And not to say that I don't think that climate change is real, but my point is like, instead of focusing on the negatives, like things with Ethereum before this whole merge was obviously the negative impact it had on climate. I feel like sometimes they use that narrative to obviously ridicule certain things like Ethereum, like we've spoken about in previous episodes, how people still believe that cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology with coins like Ethereum, like Bitcoin, are not going to stick around. But obviously, we also want to wait that this merge now has obviously raised the ears of various people in the banking institutions and the financial sector. And the reason why I've gone into that is because the whole carbon emission thing is obviously something now that's going to work in their favor. And I think that Vitalik actually had spoken about on an interview, I think yesterday, where he said that there's a good chance that Ethereum will flip or essentially leap Bitcoin. And I mean, obviously, the skeptics would argue that because he's the co-founder and he's the one driving Ethereum. What would you say to that? And like, do you think that this opportunity will favor Ethereum mostly, or will it favor everyone?
Well, look, I think it's twofold. It will favor both. Definitely Ethereum. I do believe that what Vitalik said regarding Bitcoin is a true statement. In maybe even in the short term, Ethereum will flip Bitcoin purely because of the adoption and the idea around what it can be used for as a utility. The difference with Bitcoin is still it's being mined, it's still consuming energy. It doesn't take away from what it is in essence, but it does allow, or should I say, influence bigger companies and corporations, like you said, to adopt the Ethereum blockchain instead of, for instance, Bitcoin, purely because who knows what the nuance will be in the future regarding how this gets taxed and the scrutiny it has on the environment. So you jump on, for instance, onto the blockchain with Bitcoin as a huge institution, and 5 years down the line, you're really paying due purely because of the consumption of energy and how adopted this Bitcoin space is to your consumer, because that's essentially what's going to happen. Like banking companies and public good companies like social media companies like Facebook, they have millions and billions of users. The moment they decide what chain they use, it's crucial. It is what it is as a result. So therefore, Ethereum made a very good move into moving into a proof of stake system, so that, like you said, 99% of the energy consumption is nullified. And as a result, it's a very beautiful product service for corporations such like Facebook, and etc. Oh, Meta, my bad.
You know, it's interesting. I just pulled up this article that I had read, I think, a few days ago, and it was on Fortune, and the author's name was Jeff Roberts, or the journalist, and like the whole thing was like, it's finally happened, and he kind of touched on something that I found super interesting, and it'll lead me into my next point, is that they've managed to do this. They're going to be reducing 99% of what they say is carbon emissions, and he deems that, in inverted commas, he says, this shows that this ragtag band of crypto developers can get shit done.
Yes, amazing.
This guy seems pretty defiant to how he's writing. Obviously,
yes,
he's saying that the way in which you could actually help people understand what these engineers have actually done is that these developers changed, like in aeronautical terms, like the proverbial jet engine mid-flight, and did it without a hitch. I mean, and like we spoke about this, like the likelihood of this failing was unlikely, not because we're looking at this in hindsight, but because we know that they were dedicated 7-8 years with plans in place to do this merge, which is obviously something that I believe that we should celebrate and actually praise. And the nice thing is that with Ethereum, as opposed to Bitcoin, you can put almost a face to a name. You can almost say, okay, Vitalik is the leader. He seems like a very interesting individual, and he obviously is very intelligent, and he has a vision, and he's executing on that vision. Whereas the Bitcoin is not the same, where I think because it came out a lot sooner, and yes, we kind of assume who created it, and we can put names to it, but you don't really see the guy going and talking about Bitcoin that he created at like a TEDx talk, for example, or news channel. And why I bring this up is because I think Ethereum will eventually get to at least the level of Bitcoin, because like Apple, like SpaceX, like Amazon, people like to associate a person with the brand in which they support. And
definitely.
Ethereum and Vitalik would actually follow suit, because you spoke about this last week, where you said the next Steve Jobs, the next big guy, is going to be operating in Web3 or in crypto. And you almost suggested that this guy might be that individual. But do you think that because he's in the public eye, because he's obviously representing this brand, it's actually going to do it a lot of good to get investment, to get people, to get more buy-in, because this is essentially what Ethereum is trying to do, is to get more people to buy into the platform and to build those forks that we spoke about. What do you think about that?
Definitely, bro. We social beings. We wanna, like you said, put a face to the brand or the name. And a guy like Vitalik, being as virtuous as he is the perfect opportunity to put face to brand, especially during this transition. And him sticking steadfast to his vision, which is great. And that is much like what Steve Jobs had. He was a visionary and he pushed towards it. Yes, he was perhaps a little autocratic and narcissistic, as some has deemed him to be. Like, it's difficult to say because I've never really met the guy. But nonetheless, I think that Vitalik brings a different element to this modern age businessman, businesswoman element, if that makes sense. And this is the whole like nerdy, let's change the world, let's make things, a better place. And I'm going to use my intelligence and my monetary leverage to try and bring as much value to the world as possible. And that's like something that's coming out of a cartoon. You get what I'm trying to say? So it's like it's very like disruptive, and this is what's beautiful, because with Bitcoin, like having no face to the name, kind of like made people very skeptical about how scammy this may be. And the beauty of someone putting their face on the line is that there's a reputation. And as a result, people are willing to point the finger if this dude does wrong. So yeah, I think this is what's going to really make it, it's going to exponentially speed up the adoption of Ethereum, especially post this merge.
Yeah, and I think also that the presumed advantages of this is of course this energy efficiency that we've touched on, but it's also going to be an opportunity or create lower barriers to entry, as well as that I think there's less risk of centralization, which is what you and I
definitely
for, is like when these big financial institutions start getting involved, they're almost trying to centralize the decentralization idea of a blockchain technology, one would imagine.
Yes.
The intention, but you would be naive to think that they're not. So,
no, for sure.
Vitalik has spoken about that is obviously incredibly important is the security against attacks. And I think I would say is like, if you had to look at the whole thing, is what does this whole proof of stake open up? Like, what is a very key thing? I think one of them is this economic resources that this whole ecosystem now will no longer will create, because people no longer have to spend on proof of work. And I think all kinds of projects are going to have somewhat more resources than they did before. And this is why I think Ethereum is going to take, once people start understanding and educating themselves around it, they're going to start to realize the pros and the cons. And this is obviously going to supersede a lot of the other blockchain technologies as well as coins that are currently available. And I think the timing was absolutely perfect, because over the next 3 to 4 years, I do believe in that society will start moving towards this, because the last few years, because it's been in social media, and it's obviously been around for a lot longer than that, is that people are starting to warm up to this. And also a lot of people are starting to challenge the status quo. You've seen what's happening in these countries where people are protesting for certain things, and people are actually starting to realize that we say we live in democracies, but then you've got companies that are almost canceling individuals like Andrew Tate, for example. The reason why I bring this up is because I watched the podcast with that Patrick Ben-David, and he had Andrew Tate on for 4 hours. Actually, I highly recommend watching it for the reason that he actually obviously tells his side of the story, but Patrick Ben-David, who's a successful entrepreneur and he has his own podcast, dives in and actually tries to understand genuinely who this individual is. And obviously, a lot of the stuff that was shared about him in social media is arguably false or true. I don't really want to get into that. But the interesting thing about this guy is that he got cancelled off YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Airbnb, Uber, 7 of these banks, everything. How did all these institutions get involved, right? obviously that's a whole different conversation. But my point is like those kind of actions show me that we aren't living in this free autonomy or democratic world that we actually think we are in. Because quite easily, if a person now goes against what the majority are doing, they're going to be cancelled, right? Whether it's good or bad. My point is like Ethereum and the blockchain, it's so good and it's perfect timing because this technology will be very mature in the next few years, which will hopefully avoid things like this happening and allowing people to have that free speech and also transact freely. And I think this is going to become the stepping stone to, like you spoke about, the next generation of humans.
Yeah, look, I think definitely what you brought up with the whole idea of people being cancelled. And for me, like I've done some reflection on that and psychoanalyzed it a bit to the point where I feel that it's merely just a form of groupthink that's been inverted into like a negative aspect. And what crypto and blockchain nullifies is, especially with the upgrade with ETH, is with the whole verification process of security and trying to avoid groupthink. And what I mean by that is like a digital version of it. And how can you say an attack version of that? So for instance, if I own most of the Ethereum on the blockchain, I have the ability to create consensus, or should I say make decisions that the whole community are susceptible to. And that's much like what a government is. And this is what Ethereum is trying to reduce, is the ability for someone to consume as much of the asset portfolio and then use that to leverage consensus on the chain. And that's pretty much groupthink. If you think about it, it's just democracy saying that this is how it should be. This is what's righteous. And who determines what's righteous, you know? Yes, the Bible and the Quran and that stuff's around for people to bring through virtues and take from the allegories, you know, important messages of sustaining virtue. That's how I see all these scripts from the past. It's not necessarily a way to do things, you know, because everyone's unique in their own right. And this is the beauty of blockchain, is bringing that uniqueness to an individual. But with that being said, there's a whole vast environment that you put yourself into, and you put yourself at risk if you're not educated enough. And like I, being a person that experienced such things, you know, thinking that I was, you know, knowing enough to be in a position of comfort. And yeah, I got taught a lesson, you know, I got hacked. And it was so simple, you know, it was just trying to be comfortable in your experience of using the blockchain. And that's what I mean by that is right now, everything isn't solidified and fortified to the point where you can bring Web3 to Web2 domain in a risk-free fashion. And unfortunately, I was playing with MetaMask on desktop, and that's when I got phished. And boom.
Mad. So this is what I wanted to talk about. And I know I kind of said it was funny. I didn't mean it in that way, but it was more ironic because we had spoken about this before, the security issues and the duplicates of NFTs. And now with this merge where I received numerous emails from fake Coinbase accounts saying that with the merge, I need to, like, it became very prevalent. And obviously we had spoken about this. So I hope the people that were listening or viewing this would have actually taken that on. And I would actually love to know if someone else got phished, because you're pretty diligent. You've been in the space for a long time. And it's obviously a very much a cause of concern. Because now, obviously, how do you go out and improve and how do you retrieve that money? At this point in time, you cannot.
No, well, this is the thing, dude. Like for me, like actually, let me just like run it through, like a quick summary. Like what I did differently on that day, and I was actually quite proud because I've been running some good stakes and farms on the Shiba Swap platform, and I was quite proud about it. So I brought that to the team, saying, "Hey, guys, it seems like the Shiba swap, how can you say, passive returns are pretty good. And literally like an hour after that, I got whacked. But the reason why is because usually what I do is when I log into MetaMask is I copy the code, which is your pretty much your password. That's not the 12 phrase security private key. It's merely just the password into your MetaMask essentially. And this time around, I said, let me type it out. I thought, let me start to memorize all my passwords instead of, copying it. So I typed it out, but obviously the shift key didn't make one letter a capital, for instance, and boom, it was wrong. This is where I don't know what happens, but I think during the phishing process, someone wrote a script over the MetaMask plugin.
Wow.
When typing in the password and it's wrong, it pops up into some, I don't know, like I'm not an IT genius, but I would think that it pops up into a space where someone can jump in as soon as, because it went to the 12 phrase thing. MetaMask sent me to that. I needed to type in my 12 phrase. I was like, fuck, but obviously it was early morning. I was like, fuck, okay, got it out because I wrote it down, type it out. And I think that's exactly when the person infiltrated, was in that moment. And what's interesting for me,
not ideal, but I mean, your knowledge and your story is definitely going to be people.
Yeah, look, it's for me, it's allowed me to learn from this experience that right now you can't be too comfortable in trying to bring Web3 to Web2 right now. So keep everything on a wallet that's preferably on your phone. So I've moved over to an app called SafePal. But something I wanna retract a bit. And what was interesting with the hacker is that he knew that I had hex stakes, which was very interesting. So this means that the people that are in this domain that are trying to steal from others are actually quite adept in their own right in the space. So they're not just people that are just IT gurus; they're actually crypto masterminds, in their own right. Because the coins that they even sent out my wallet was quite interesting, like my Roshis, like it was worth only $10. But the thing is, the guy knows that is Roshi, which the guy that started Shiba, it's loyalty token. So that's going to be worth a lot in the future. And this motherfucker knew this shit. He sent it out. He was willing to pay Ethereum fees, or it was essentially my Ethereum, to send it out. So yeah, it's smart people doing this, and this is what
you got locked out. You were trying to get in, you couldn't get in.
No, I was in. He didn't change my passwords or anything. This is what makes me believe that he didn't have my 12 phrase. He literally just jumped in when I logged in. But the thing is, MetaMask only after this, knowing what I know now, did the research, because I never want this shit to happen again, that there's a lock function on both the app and the desktop. On the desktop, it's the top right. So when this is happening, as soon as you see a transaction that's not been authenticated by you, you can push lock. In most cases, this pushes everyone that's logged into your MetaMask out and they need to log back in. So what this does is, in 90% of the cases, when they do just jump into the logging process where they don't really know your private key, the lock function is going to save you in this situation. If I knew about it, it would have perhaps saved me, because I saw my first hex stake get unpulled off and I was like, wait, I know I unstaked a hex. It's so funny, bro. It was literally my first hex stake came to maturation and I unstaked it that morning. And then it happened. I thought, okay, maybe there's a glitch in the system, but that doesn't make sense. Hex is freaking well designed, dude. Then again, another one. I was like, whoa. Jumped in, just coming out. I was like, no way. Someone's on here, bro. It happened in like 3 minutes. All of them came out. Like there was even like a 25% penalization on all the stakes. But that doesn't matter to someone, bro. He doesn't care.
You can't get hold of anyone or anything, right?
Look, the probably the best thing you could do is phone a friend, but you know what I mean? You're just putting that person in a position where they might not have even experienced that. So this is how new this space is. Like, I don't really know what to do. So for me, taking the next step is to say, how can I be safer? How do I go? Do I go cold storage? And I think, yes, like for instance, like when I said with Ethereum staking, if I have a portion of my ETH, I'm going to take that and I'm going to stake it on a cold wallet, you know, and leave that. You know, next time I do my X stakes, I'm going to do that on a ledger. I'm going to leave that. You know, it's just, it's better for now, right? Because it's just not worth it, bro. Like, it really isn't. Yeah.
You'll 100% look back at this. But yeah,
Defos, bro, look.
What's appreciated, I think it's relevant to what we're talking about now, not only cryptos, but also NFTs.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing I also wanted to cover, and I suppose the whole point of this was that I think the whole reaction to the market, like a lot of people would have assumed that people would have pulled out, and a lot of people were nervous around this. Like you would normally see in the stock market if a particular change was imminent. But I think the reaction was like, I would say like decidedly muted in a way. It was, I think the Ethereum price did slump a bit, I think as much as 7% after the merge, which is not that significant at all. I mean, compared to what we but I mean, I don't think this is entirely surprising for me. I mean, I think a lot of investors like ourselves, even leading up to this merge, had almost priced it successfully before the merge started, already back in July, if you think about it. But I think the subdued market reaction also demonstrates that the Ethereum, as well as the whole crypto industry, as the whole community, need more than what we've called now this merge to pull themselves out of the crypto winter, which is incredibly positive, reassuring that people are, like we've also spoken about before, is the trust factor. You actually end up off the last episode with trust and being I think trust is a massive thing. We actually spoken about it with my team today, creating culture values and speaking about how do we envision our company and what is the values that we hold. And trust was something that came up a few times amongst the people that we work with. And I think that is incredibly important. And if you can garner and capture an individual's trust or an industry's trust, then you are setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, look, I've even gone to believe in my own right that trust is even of higher value to a human being than love. And it's interesting. The reason why I say that is because you can love someone that you don't trust necessarily. But trust is just of the highest virtue, because the thing is, if you don't trust someone, there's a certain level of experience, or should I say advocation, that you'll bring that will be reduced to some extent. And that means that you're not completely open. And this is what's beautiful about open source software and blockchain, is that it's completely open. And this is what people want. And this is what essentially we would want in each other. You know, in relationships, we want each other to be completely open. And we find that as confrontational, it induces conflict. But I just believe it's just human beings not being self-aware enough to identify the emotions that comes with bringing the authentic self to fruition, if that makes sense. So I'm super excited as how this will culturally impact human beings in the future. It might take a couple years, but I do believe that it's going to bring a good element of trust, especially in the physical nature of how we advocate towards each other.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I do think that, I mean, like, if you look at it philosophically, and I think you and I both enjoy it. We can dive into that. But I also think, like, trust, security, and privacy is a massive thing. And this is something that Vitalik was really emphasizing, that this is what they're trying to create. Because they're also very well aware of how effective and impactful this technology is going to be. But in order to sustain it, maintain it, as well as grow it without any interruptions from people that are stealing money from individuals like you or hacking companies, that obviously ruins their reputation. And these kind of things, I assume after the dot-com boom, were also pretty prevalent. But not a lot of people understood it and were aware of it. I'm sure a lot of websites back then were getting hacked. And obviously right now, you still see it every day, but I do believe that the firewalls and the protection around cybersecurity has exponentially increased, where a lot of companies are investing millions of dollars in this. But I think another and I think another interesting thing that I remember learning about was the security around the NFT gaming space. It's obviously become incredibly popular. And games like, I think it was called Axie Infinity, was like a really successful NFT-based game last year. But then they got hacked. They got hacked, and then aside from that, there hasn't really been able to recover that game, because obviously people don't tend to trust it. And
yes.
This is going to, there's the saying, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. One step forward, 2 steps back. Right? This is kind of what I feel like the market is doing. Obviously, that's progressing quite nicely. But these little things like this is obviously influencing the purchasing behavior of the individual. I think that's something that's a risk we're all willing to take. But if you had to lose money from your bank account, you can obviously claim that back, right? But then obviously people would come in, but this is what we're trying to avoid, is have these financial institutions have complete control of our money. And I think these conversations are starting to come up, especially with these financial institutions trying to enter the space and leverage this technology. And I think the reason why a game like that was that people who designed the games were first-generation NFT gamers and developers, and they probably approached it with the attitude of the financialization aspect of these games. But itself was not enough to make that game fun. And I think these kind of use cases, obviously it's unfortunate for individuals and teams like that to experience it. But as that Colonel Camden had said, and I had spoken to him, he was like, we are still in our infancy stage. Where you are now, where SportsFinder is now, is really at its baby point. And the fact that you guys are doing this podcast and educating and pushing these cool stories through, based on your own perceptions, opinions, experiences, is adding value. And I think it's really exciting to be in this space at this moment, just even observing and learning about it.
I totally agree, dude. Like, I was even in a position where I felt like my trust was infringed when I got hacked. And it felt like I had this resent towards the system, because you couldn't like complain and like go and phone someone and say, yo, man, what the fuck? It was just a self-absorbed thing. Like, I didn't even really want to tell anyone about it until I realized that there can be a learning experience, you know, because it was an internal experience for me. Like, no one was around. It was just me in my room, just dealing with this situation, right? And like, there was a moment, like I said, I resented the system to the point where I felt like, can I trust it again? And for me, I know so much about, or should I say, I believe in it so much that I said, yes, I can. The difference is I just need to strap up my boots and do it better, because that's what it's about, bro. It's like in business. You do shit. Yes. Exactly. That's exactly it, bro.
No, I definitely think you got to look at it that way, and I know you will. I mean,
yes.
Comes to these kind of things. And you're right, man. I mean, to have money being stolen from you almost, and you're helpless, and you very much know you're never getting that money back. I mean, these kind of learnings are going to obviously shape you into the investor that you will eventually become. So yeah, I think
brilliant.
The only reason why I want to bring it up is because I think it is important. It's something that we all naturally need to be aware of. So we've come to the end, Jono. Another cracker. I think I really enjoyed this one. So
amazing.
The whole thing is that nothing really happened with Ethereum. I think a lot of people were pleasantly surprised. A lot of people weren't pleasantly weren't shocked at all. But I think, again, thanks everyone for watching and listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please like that button and get in the comments if you like. and we'll see you next time. I think the next time we record will actually be episode 20. Quite the milestone for us. We might pop a bottle of champagne. But John, I appreciate you wanting to share your story with everyone, and I think a lot of people will take
No, much love.
And I think you're humble in defeat, and I know you'll definitely be humble in your success. So, I mean, I've learned a lot just from that. I've become a lot more risk averse when it comes to the way in which I'm transacting on these various platforms. And we are all perceiving us to be safe, which quite clearly is not quite fair. As normal, do you have any parting remarks or words?
Yeah, I do. It's a little bit of a pun, but I'd lean towards more of the spiritual side of it. But it goes like something I came up with. If you can afford the law, ... it serves you. And it's something that, for me, I find that transcending from the Web 2 domain is going into a space where the law is a lot more unified. It's a lot more for everyone. It doesn't just serve the few who can afford it, if that makes sense. But yeah, much love.
Yeah, I love that, man. Well, thanks, Jonah. Take care. Thanks, everyone.